All right, everyone. Happy dinner hour. It's the Baker Fairburn Hockey Show here on a Tuesday evening edition. I don't even know what day it is, Matthew. I had a wild day today, but it's great to see your face. I actually look better today, by the way. I like the way I look today compared to the other day. I made a comment I didn't look good. I think I look better today. Check and tell me if I'm wrong. We'll see. But hey, as always, before we begin, thanks for stopping by, everyone. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when the Baker Fairburn Hockey Show goes live. And please find us audio version wherever you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, a couple other places. Leave a 5-star review. It helps us, and we appreciate those reviews as always. Huge game, meaningful hockey. I think, Matthew, can we call it meaningful hockey here in March with the Sabres hosting a team that they're chasing tonight in the standings, the Detroit Red Wings? Meaningful?
It's as meaningful as it gets for the Sabres at this stage. It's more meaningful than I expected it to be a week or two ago. Now, they play the Red Wings tonight at home. They play the Islanders at home on Thursday. And they play the Red Wings on the road on Saturday. And currently in the wild card standings, the Red Wings are 7 points ahead of the Sabres with one game in hand. The Islanders are 7 points ahead of the Sabres with one game in hand. And there are only two teams in between the Sabres and the Islanders and Red Wings. That's the Capitals and Devils. The Capitals have games in hand. The Devils are only a point ahead of the Sabres. It's not good math, but you win all three of these games, all of a sudden March becomes slightly more meaningful, which is funny considering all the conversations we had surrounding the trade deadline as this team sold off some of its veterans.
I'm not going to lie. So I was working till the final bell today and quickly got out of the office, went outside, beautiful day outside here in Hamburg, New York, walked the dogs. And I was like really excited for this hockey game tonight because I like sitting down at the end of a day and I want to watch a good product. I've said that all along, but I'm also now kind of invested doing this podcast with you. It just makes the investment level is elevated. I'm excited to see what the Sabres team can do because 6-3-1 in their last 10. My question for you is, are they catching this Red Wings team at a good time? The Red Wings have lost 5 straight games. Now, on paper, it looks like they are. But I also think that they might be feeling good after that game over the weekend against Edmonton. They won it twice. You got a goal out of Tage, who you've been waiting to kind of get him going. He got his 19th of the year. Jacob Bryson scores a goal. Then they go out, obviously. They thought they had the overtime winner. That got nullified with Alex Tuck offsides, I believe, right? And
yes.
you have, they go out and they score some pretty nice shootout goals. They have to be feeling really good about where they're going. Like I said, 6 in their last 10 wins. And this Detroit team seems to be in a little bit of a slump. Are you kind of feeling the same? Are they set up to come out and like things are moving really good? Again, I say it on paper, but I think the vibes, which people always want to talk about this team, I think the vibes might be in a good spot here for the Sabres team.
They are in a much better place than they were this time a week ago. I'll say that because the feeling I got Monday at practice, today at morning skate, even on Saturday, is that there is a very real sense of relief that the trade deadline is over with. And we spoke a little bit before the game on Saturday about how it can be a good thing that Kyle Okposo is gone, and couldn't quite get anybody to go that far when I was talking to some of the players, but there was a sense of excitement over the opportunity from guys like Tage Thompson, Dylan Cousins to step into bigger leadership roles. They feel prepared for it. And I think that's where some of this is coming from. There was a lot of stress and anxiety. Alex Tuck was saying that after the game, just about, he said it was an emotional few weeks, just wondering what would happen with Kyle Okposo and Eric Johnson and then Casey Middlestat. These guys hear the rumors probably even more so than some of us do, right? They try to block out the noise, but they're getting the direct conversations with the general manager and their agents. So they have a real understanding of what's going on. And when it's your captain, a veteran player like Eric Johnson, your NHLPA player rep like Casey Middlestat, these are all, things that impact the overall psychology of the team. So I think you saw the way they played on Saturday. There was a sense of freedom about their game, a sense of relief almost that the deadline was over. And now Tage Thompson, we were talking after practice on Monday, and none of the questions were about their position in the standings. And yet each time he found a way to talk about their position in the standings and how they were trying to push for a playoff spot. And I found that interesting because a week earlier, you had Alex Tuck, you had Kyle Okposo, the captain of your team, talking around the idea that he wanted to be put on a contender, right? Your captain wants to be put on a contender. So as much as these guys have this unwavering belief that they can make the playoffs at all times until they're mathematically eliminated, the doubt had to be creeping in when your captain wants to go somewhere else. Now that's over with. Deadline's over with. The team is the team. And they have a weird lane into contention here. So I'm curious to see how the next 3 games go, because each time we've seen the pressure, the expectations, when they get close, it seems like when they come down a peg as a team. So this is their next test. You have a little taste, a glimmer of hope. Can they go out and take it with 2 games against the Red Wings in a span of 4 or 5 days and a game against the Islanders? You can make up some serious ground here.
No, I agree. It's interesting. We talked a little bit about it on Saturday when we got together before the Sabres game with Edmonton, how, maybe it's a theory, I don't know, but that whole Bowen Byram acquisition, first of all, the pairing with Dahlin looks really good. But I think it's also lifting the spirits of Cousins. For those that haven't read your one of your recent articles in The Athletic, you had mentioned that Cousins is actually hosting, putting Byram up, kind of speaks to their friendship. We talked about it. It was a theory at the time. He should be feeling really good. Peyton Krebs maybe feeling really good. There's this new element. Those moves, it's another way of saying, I think, what you just said. Those moves at the deadline, the team's they seem to be in a really good spot here. I'm really curious. We saw it on Saturday. I'm really curious to see if they can carry it over. Now, you mentioned Tage, and I think that's a good place to just talk about the lineup again tonight to properly finish teeing up what I started earlier. Okay, so UPL tonight in net. I had it ready. It's not going to loop. I turned the loop off. We'll get the net tonight. The goal save above expected. Juggernaut start as expected tonight. Sabres anyway on Saturday. It sounds like he's coming back in the lineup. So let's just kind of dive right into the line combos for those that have been working and haven't checked everything out. So it looks like they're going to stay with that Girgensons, Thompson, Tuck trio up top. Greenway comes back in on a line with Dylan Cousins and Zach Benson. The Skinner, Krebs, Peterka line will be together again. I think we should talk about that unit. And Eric Robinson, Tyson Jost, and Victor Olofsson will complete the forward lineup with Lucas Rusak drawing out, with Greenway coming back in tonight. So there's kind of 2, I guess, notable things that we should discuss. Let's start with Girgensons really up top. Kind of interesting. We spent some time talking about Zemgus Girgensons and maybe some of the comments that Kevin Adams made in his press availability after the trade deadline. And we've seen the Sabres do this at various points in the season. I think they're kind of doing it again tonight. They're kind of they're spreading out that jam in the lineup, right? Putting a direct player on each line, whether it's Girgensons on his unit, Greenway on his unit. I'm not sure who the Skinner, Krebs, Peterka jam guy is on that unit.
Krebs, I guess, right?
I guess it's Krebs. Yeah, I guess you could say it's Krebs. And then, of course, Eric Robinson down on the bottom. Do you like that look with Girgensons up top with Thompson and Tuck? I guess, what did you evaluate his play on Saturday? And are you surprised to see him there again for another go against Detroit?
Long term, I don't think that's what you want.
No.
As you're building out your team and forecasting, but it speaks a little bit to the value of Zemgus Girgensons, right? That you can put him up there. He can hold his own. He can give you that defensive game, that simple game that the term Don Granato always likes to use. It stabilizes Tage Thompson and Alex Tuck a little bit and allows you to spread things out, balance things out. I think that's part of the departure of Kyle Okposo has forced Don Granato to think about some different combinations. And I didn't mind Girgensons in that spot at all. And again, it's not something you want to have as your long-term look. He's not your left wing one going forward, but it does give you a little something different on that line. A little look, if it's that or Jeff Skinner, right now, the way Jeff Skinner's playing, he's right where he belongs on the third line. And so I think this is rewarding the guy that's a tone setter, that's playing the game the way they want more guys to play it. We heard Kevin Adams on Friday talk about wanting to see the team compete, the competitiveness, the final 18 games. And he is the embodiment of that, is Zemgus Girgensons. That's the way he plays, night in and night out. So we'll see how long they stick that together, because Greenway has also been a guy that ends up with those two at times too. And of course, if Skinner starts to find his game, maybe that's something they go back to. But spreading it out does seem to keep more of a consistent drumbeat of compete and jam throughout your lineup, which is not a bad thing when it's a team that's struggled with consistently finding that part of their game.
So on Saturday, we saw that really JJ Peterka and Jeff Skinner kind of took a little bit of a haircut with their ice time, right? I think it was Jeff Skinner had 9:15 time on ice against the Oilers. That was his lowest total of the season when he was healthy. And that's the player that I'm watching tonight, is if Skinner is going to react positively and take his game to the next level. He's been in a little bit of a slump, right? Had that weird overtime play against Toronto, had some mishaps also in the last game against Edmonton that caused him to get stapled to the bench. But Peterka also kind of sitting down a little bit. Now, I always go back. I've mentioned this before on the Baker Fairburn Hockey Show. We saw JJ sit down last year and come back and positively react to being out of the lineup completely. If you recall, when he sat down late in the season, then they put him back in and seemingly got his game back on track, if I recall correctly. Those are two guys that could actually, let's see if they step up tonight. Are you kind of feeling the same thing? Like they should have a spotlight on them tonight. They should be ready to go. Whatever bad plays are now behind them. See if they can really take this opportunity and stay in the lineup for all three periods tonight. Those are the guys that I'm looking at tonight.
I'd say all three guys on that line, really, because while Krebs wasn't in that group on Saturday of guys getting their ice time throttled, he has been in that group before within the last couple of weeks, multiple times. And so when you think about a player like Krebs, who has been waiting to play with some more skilled players, guys that can score, he's now with the two top scorers on the team. Then those guys get benched. Let's see if they can find a little bit of a rhythm. How Skinner responds will be interesting, because not the first time in his career that he's been demoted, right? Not the first time in his career that he's been stapled to the bench. But under this coach, it's a new thing. The whole thing with Skinner under Don Granato was the positivity. Bumping him up the lineup was going to make everything work, and it did for a while. But this has been, I think, an underwhelming season for Jeff Skinner. Certainly away from the puck, he's not exactly a factor for the Sabres, sometimes a negative factor. He's not scoring at the clip that they saw last season. And so how does he respond here? It's, getting ahead of ourselves. If we start to forecast and think ahead about remaking the forward group, something we've talked about a lot, how does Jeff Skinner factor into that? He's an expensive player with term left on his contract and a no-move clause. You're not going to be able to get rid of him very easily. And a buyout, even that feels like an early conversation because of
I'm not there yet.
He has time on his contract. So I think the question is, for me, and why, to your point, his placement on this line is so interesting, is can he be effective for your team in his way, away from Thompson and Tuck? Because then I think you can figure something out, over the next couple of years. Where does he fit? You start to put the puzzle pieces together in a different way. But if it's top line or nothing, that gets a lot harder. So he needs to respond the right way to this. And I would almost say it's overdue that he get a little bit of a kick in the pants in this way.
Like I said, I'm going to be watching him closely tonight. I think this is a big game for Jeff Skinner. They need him too, honestly. And I talk a lot with you offline about matchups. In theory, third line, last change. If he's got a chip on his shoulder, he could be an asset tonight as a guy that we know can put the puck in the net. So if the engagement level's there and he limits his mistakes, let's see how he reacts. I'm expecting him to have a good game if you can't tell. We should probably talk about Patrick Kane, shall we? Hometown boy coming back. Do you think those players on the Sabres have a little bit of something to show tonight in response to Kane coming back to Buffalo? Now, keep in mind, Patrick Kane, 13 goals, 31 points in 30, I forget how many games he's played. He's not quite in 33 games, so not quite a point per game player. He's also gotten a little cold. He has just 1 goal in his last 5 games, nothing in his last 4. Seems like as he goes, the Red Wings go, like I said, they lost their last 5. What's your reaction to Kane? Did he draw a lot of attention down today from the local media at the game day skate? Were you down there with Kane at the game day skate?
Yeah, Kane always draws a crowd. And, I don't know how much he impacts the Sabres at this moment, because I would have thought his presence in Buffalo would have impacted them the first time. A few days after he signed, he wasn't playing yet, but he's up in the press box, and he just picked the Red Wings over the Sabres because he wanted to go to the playoffs. He looked at the two situations, looked at his hometown, looked at Detroit, chose Detroit's plan over Buffalo's plan. And to me, that would have given you a little extra pep in your step, and they got handled pretty good in that game. So maybe they have a little bit of a different moxie about him now, but Patrick Kane has settled in really nice there. And it has, I think, created, our Red Wings writer, Max Boltman, is here in town from The Athletic. And last time he was here, he was writing about how he thinks, despite where they are in the standings, Buffalo is still set up long-term better than Detroit. Like, he'd still rather be Buffalo than Detroit. He's not as bullish on that point now, but still not, moved away from it. And I think that's what's interesting is you sit here and they're 7 points apart, but the way they're talked about, you would think they're 20 points apart sometimes. And there might be something to what you're saying where now maybe the delayed reaction kicks in. The lineup's healthy. The team is pushing in the right direction. They're less worried about other factors like injuries they had in the lineup early in the season. Maybe that's enough to fire them up a little extra, but it should feel like the closest thing the Sabres have to a playoff series this week, right? Detroit,
100%.
Islanders, Detroit. It's not a playoff series.
They're in the playoffs. This actually is the playoffs for them right now. When you're 7
back
as well and the clock's ticking, it's the playoffs.
So every little bit of motivation, I think, goes into the bucket, and
even false motivation, kind of like Michael Jordan making up stories about LeBradford Smith, right? Like, you joked about it in December when we talked about this, or November when it was. Yeah, I'm sure the Sabres are really crazy to have Patrick Kane come in and take a job from one of the guys in this tight room. But then now they can rally and say, hey, this guy chose them instead of us. Even if maybe they never really wanted him on the team, the guys in the room. You never know, right? But use it to motivation. Whatever works.
Couldn't you, in theory, motivate yourself by being like, these guys that got traded out didn't think we could do it. Let's go do it, right?
Yeah.
You can use
I'm looking for anything. I'm looking for anything if I'm those guys
to motivate yourself. And, imagine if the Sabres were to pull off, look, to give some context to what the Sabres are trying to do, a lot of people will bring up St. Louis, right? As 2019, 18, 19, 19, 20, whatever year that was, they were in last place and they made it all the way. Well, here's the thing. In January, when they were in last place, they were 9 points out of the wild card. Last week in March, the Sabres were 10 points out.
Yeah,
this is a lot of ground to make up in a short period of time.
It's why different.
It's why the models give them a 1% chance or a 1.8% chance. I think Money Puck has them at. It's not a good math situation, but it certainly does not feel like the Sabres have quit, and it shouldn't feel that way. We talked about it on Saturday. That's the last thing this team can afford to do. If you're going to sell yourself as a team that is growing and learning through mistakes, you do not pack it in, because that is a really bad sign. And so they haven't done that. And now we get to see, look, you'll take any, think about last year when they were really excited about the idea of feeling the pressure of a playoff push, when in theory it wasn't much of one, right? It's not like they were holding down playoff position very long and trying to cling to it the way Detroit is now. But they used that to try to gain something from the experience. This week can be a miniature version of that. It's like, all right, look, there you are. You're back sort of in the conversation with 3 wins that could change the game. Go do it. Go make it interesting.
Yeah, there was another, I teed it up tonight too, just by saying the Sabres again on paper are set up. And it's not just the Red Wings losing their last 5 and Buffalo winning 6 of their last 10, but there was another stat. I think maybe it was Sabres PR. Did you see that? Seems like the Sabres have done pretty well, whether it's home or away, in recent games against Detroit. Again, another trend that I don't want to, I'm just saying, look, I think that there's reason to believe the Sabres they have a good chance tonight. Now, of course, they have to go out and get it done. Oh, by the way, on Patrick Kane playing on the top line with another former Sabres property, JT Comfort. Now that one, by the way, I love JT Comfort. I always have. A lot of what we talk about that this team needs now is what JT Comfort brings to the Detroit lineup every night that he brought formerly to the Colorado Avalanche lineup. But when they made that trade, it was Comfort, Grigorenko, Zadorov, that was a O'Reilly trade. Comfort was the guy that hurt the most. And he's gone out and proven that. Not gaudiest stats or anything like that. Just plays hard, tough. Love him. Remember watching him in development camp with Sean Malone battling these one-on-one drills, just like fighting tooth and nail. Like you don't see that stuff in the summer. It's one of those things that just is imprinted in your brain. That's representative of who he is as a player. But so now two Buffalo connections there playing together on the top line with Detroit. Okay, I'm drowning. I'm just droning on about old school prospect stuff. Had to get something in. Oh, by the way, hey, on the prospect tip, by the way, while we're here, Anton Wahlberg. Now, for those that listen to the Prospect Avenue podcast, you already know that this was a possibility. His season today with the Malmo Redhawks ended. They played their final regular season game, and it sounds like with him being under contract that he is going to make the move over to Rochester, join the Sabres organization. We'll see if he gets in. They have a logjam down there all over the place. They have too many players at forward and D. I think they'd actually like to maybe get him into a game at some point here. Big kid, still 18 years old. Played a really, he had 5 goals, 5 assists this season for Malmo, but played a critical role, workhorse role, and, net front presence. It'd be interesting to see if he can get into some games here. But either way, that's a development that I believe was also reported today, Matthew, by a Swedish news
reports
outlet.
Out of Sweden. He gave I think he gave an interview on a broadcast that actually confirmed that was his plan. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that he will play in Rochester next season, but that seems to be the likely outcome, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's what they want with him. They want to get him in. He's such a young kid, and he doesn't turn 19 until July 4th. So he's just big kid, but he with a full season now in the Swedish Hockey League, I think that they want him to come over and play next season for sure. He may not get into any games. We don't know if he's nursing anything as well. Noah Ostlund came over last year. Again, there's benefit by just being around the coaching staff, being around the system, just being here with the guys, watching from afar. But I have this suspicion that they may want to get him into a game if they can fit him in. We'll see. Things can happen. Other than that, trying to think what else we got. Other news today, Sabres will begin their 2024-25 campaign over in Europe. What do you got on that, Matthew?
Yeah, Munich for an exhibition against Red Bull, which is JJ Peterka's old club. And then they head to Prague for 2 games against the Devils. So we'll see if Yuri Kulik can make the team and play some games in his home country. And Lukáš Rusek also playing some games. He spends his summers in Prague still, and would certainly be an exciting moment for those guys. And, we'll see if maybe the Baker Fairburn Hockey Show goes global in the 24-25 season. Maybe I'll be over there to give us some boots on the ground perspective on. It'll be an interesting time to be around the Sabres, right? When they're starting that make or break season for a lot of people in the organization next year, and having to do it over in Europe makes for a funky schedule, early in the year. But hey, they'll take what they can get, right? That's not a bad place to be on the grand stage to open the season.
6:30 p.m. time check. Sabres coming out for warmups. 7 o'clock puck drop tonight, right?
Indeed. That's the loud music you hear behind me. So if
do you got a few minutes
louder,
do you got a few minutes for the chat?
Let's plow through.
Okay, Brian Cummings, we'll throw him up first. Skinner has 3 goals in his last 19 games. Peterka 2 in his last 16. Krebs hasn't scored since January 11th. Yeah, they're due. All 3 of them are due. That's my answer to that. Matthew, you got an opinion on Brian Cummings' comment there about that line, the third line tonight for the Sabres?
It's the line to watch. 3 guys with something to prove, I think. 3 guys that, all are in a spot where, this is where Krebs should be able to start to pile up some points. But to Brian's point, those other guys around him need to get things going.
There was a comment that I presently cannot locate, but it was asking for a Jack Quinn injury update. And that is also on my sheet that I wanted to get to on Saturday, but we just had so many other things to talk about. I'm going to ask you today, what's your update on Jack Quinn's injury recovery?
Kevin Adams did not commit to him playing again this season, but I have spotted him around without the walking boot. He had the walking boot up to almost his knee on Saturday when I saw him. He did not have it, and he's been getting a lot of shots in outside the locker room. Not yet skating, but that's he's getting closer. I just don't think they want to rush him back onto the ice if he's not 100% ready, but he's certainly eager. And man, is he going to be the best shooter in hockey by the time he's done rehabbing all these lower body injuries this year? He's probably only been able to shoot most of the season. So tons of time in the shooting room when he was rehabbing the Achilles, and now he's got even more as it's not a knee, it's not an Achilles, it's something there in between, but he's getting a lot of time in the shooting room.
When you said shots, I thought you took me aback for a second. I thought you were talking about the shots that I'm usually doing at this hour. But now I got you. There was a question about Matt Savoy. We'll just get through that one real quick. Again, not to dominate this show with my prospect rhetoric, but off topic, can Matt Savoy play in the AHL playoffs? 100% he can. The question is, will his season in Moose Jaw last longer than the Amerks AHL season? Now, Moose Jaw, they're currently second in the WHL Eastern Conference. Seems like they're on a collision course with Saskatoon. And they have some other tough competition there. Swift Current loaded up at the deadline. And I'm not going to discount, teams like Red Deer. That's where Mats Lindgren plays as well. So we'll see if they can come out. Right now, though, that team is stacked, absolutely loaded. And the Western Conference has some serious teams as well. Right now, Moose Jaw is ranked in the CHL top 10, but they're the 4th ranked WHL team in the CHL top 10. So there's other teams that the prognosticators that watch all of Canadian junior hockey think are have a higher probability right now than the Moose Jaw Warriors. Anything else here, Matthew, in the chat? There's a lot in the chat. Yeah.
This sparked a little bit of a conversation in the chat from Kevin here. Go ahead.
Okay, so Kevin says, am I the only person not impressed by Benson's 18 points in 54 games so far this season? My take is this season, not really about points for Benson. Of course, you want him to score points, but you cannot ignore his value to the team that he has showed, whether it's taking space away, being dogged, his compete level, raising the effort of his line mates as well. Anywhere that you've put him in the lineup, for the most part, maybe not every night, I think he's made every line that he's on better. And that's huge for an 18-year-old kid. Of course, you want him to score more, but I'm not on board with Kevin. If Kevin's not impressed, I'm okay with where Benson's been this season. Matthew, now you go, Matthew.
Same. I mean, he's been a favorite of the show this season, right? We like Zach Benson. We like the way he plays. He is figured out a lot of the stuff that is really hard to figure out. Scoring is not easy to figure out either, but I do think points will be almost inevitable given the way that he plays as he gets stronger, figures out the NHL game. Still so young. And should he have been here? Should they have added somebody that made it harder for him to make the roster? Maybe.
Yeah.
But he earned it and has not looked out of place. There's a reason you don't see him, healthy scratched very often. Not even as often, I think, as you saw with some of the youngsters last year. Krebs, Peterka, Quinn. Very rare to see Benson come out of the lineup. It's because things he does away from the puck help them, I don't want to say help them win games because they're not a winning team right now, but it positively impacts the game. So
watch Benson when he's the second forechecker, when he's F2, he knows what the first guy ahead of him is going to do, and he's right there to cut the play off. He does it all the time. That right there is a veteran type of play where he's just making plays well above his years right now. But again, I don't want to oversell it, but I still think that I've said it before on this show. This year, for me, in terms of Benson, it's all about data. It's all about data, and he's going to use it wisely in this next couple of years and keep getting better. I have no reason to believe that that's not the case. JMP flushed it, says Okposo leaves and they have 40 hits against the Oilers. Coincidence? I think it kind of works in to what Matthew was talking about, just with the group and where they're at right now. It's not addition by subtraction necessarily. If that 40 hit stat is right, it's not a coincidence. I think that they had some jump in their game, and their team speed has increased with Okposo not being out there.
You also wonder, I wrote a little bit about it, I think this morning, the story posted, I can't keep track of the days about, and it ties into what we talked about on Saturday, why it can be a positive thing that Okposo is gone. And it really has not much to do with Okposo at all, but just, it feels to me like this young group of leaders, whether they're ready or not, 100% ready or not, they respond to one another, right? Like, it's time for Rasmus Dahlin to lead his peers. Kyle Okposo is almost from a different generation of player than the guys he's trying to lead. It's a different dynamic, and it's one that I think these guys respond to the best players. That's why I've brought up Tage Thompson as a leader in that room, even though he doesn't wear a letter.
It's a great point. Yeah.
They respond to the best players. It's why Bowen Byram weirdly feels like a leader in 2 games, because he is setting the tone. It's why they respond to Rasmus Dahlin and Dylan Cousins when he's rolling, and Tage Thompson. And it's, again, not really anything to do with Okposo. It's just that he's almost a different generation of captain, the old guy in the room. And there's not a lot of other guys of his age group that he's trying to lead. He's trying to lead guys 12, 13 years younger than him in some cases. And it feels almost more natural for it to be Dylan Cousins and Rasmus Dahlin and Alex Tuck, Tage Thompson. I think Kyle Okposo helped those guys figure out what it looks like, but I think it's time for them to be the ones doing it. So is it a coincidence? Probably not. And there was some, when we were talking about the motivation factor of your captain not necessarily thinking it was possible anymore, which, look, I do not blame Kyle Okposo at all.
Yeah.
He was right. And going to the Panthers gives him a lot better chance to get that $500,000 and that Stanley Cup ring that he's after. But that's going to impact the young team a little bit. Like, boy, the captain's picking his next spot, while theoretically, they're trying to jockey for position. And another commenter brought up the GM was on board with that, right? A little bit of a sell-off. The GM doesn't think you can do it, but maybe they're a better team now than they were a week ago. Maybe.
Good teams often comment about how they get each other ready. I think Tampa said that. The guys in that room, they don't govern themselves in full, but they don't always need that nightly kick in the ass from the coaching staff to get ready to play a game. And I sometimes feel that that's been the case with this iteration of the Sabres, at least early in the season. I don't know what this comment means. I just like the comment. Mitch, our friend, who we all love and adore, says sicko Carney vibes.
I think he's talking about Benson, right?
Oh, yes. That's right. Thank you for clarifying that. I love the comment. I love the caps. I love everything. Matt, thank you for saving the day there. I was just going to kind of roll past it. I like the look of that font. I'm pretty good here, Matthew. It's 6:40, and I know you gotta get situated. Unless you see anything else, let me throw one more up here from Steven Cantor, who we love, who owes me a drink. Ralph was right about Skinner and benching him or dumping him on the fourth line. Craig Rivet called it 1 year ago. Look, I think that Skinner's the guy right now. Like I said, I think that the story of how you can use him moving forward is actually going to be written here in the balance of the season. I think there's indicators that you might be able to use him where he's not handcuffed to a Tage Thompson next year if he can kind of perform, for instance, tonight, and makes this a repeatable event. We'll see where that goes. Listen, Skinner served a purpose here in terms of goal scoring. Had a great year last year. It's unfortunate that he's one of many that haven't followed up those great seasons that they had individually last year. And again, he's the guy for me. Like if the Sabres go top six hunting for a forward in the offseason, it's Skinner's spot that's probably being backfilled. So I get where Steven's going. I'm not as aggressive as Craig is, and Craig just has a certain player profile. Craig doesn't like his goal song. Craig doesn't like his style of play. Craig wants a little more of what I want. I don't target Jeff Skinner all the time, but I mean, I'm not here to say that Craig doesn't know what he's talking about. I love Craig, friends with Craig. He's a good guy. And he puts on a great show with Andrew.
He absolutely does. I enjoy it a lot. And, somebody dropped in here that the buyout numbers, which I didn't have in front of me, are 2.7 for the next 6 years if you buy him out. If the cap goes up, you might be able to swallow it. I think it's easier in a few years, though, a year or two.
We're going to talk about this in the offseason because there's other offseason questions in the chat about what we think they're going to do.
Yeah, Quentin had this one in there.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just took it off by accident. Yeah, Matthew, love your work at The Athletic. Wondering who you think the Sabres should target in the offseason, given the uncertainty with what the prospects may make the jump. Listen, I think that we're going to have plenty of time to address that. I don't know if it's prudent to do it right now with, the puck drop in here in probably a little over 20 minutes. But what I would say, back to your point, though, about the buyout, you can swallow $2 million for 6 years if you're going to have a steady stream of entry-level contracts on your roster. The one thing that I would say about that, though, is, again, the more entry-level contracts that you have on the roster, the lower your average age is. And the Sabres have a problem right now. They're still the youngest team in the National Hockey League. And I think they want to take corrective action against that. That's just a suspicion that I have. Or maybe they're going to just be a young team that kicks a lot of ass and moves their way up the standings. Harder to do that way, though, without that experience of guys that have been there and done that, like a Patrick Kane.
It's definitely harder to do as a young team. I'm going to throw Clinton's comment on here to close this out. I don't know if people saw he said Craig's just salty because Adams beat him on that goal so many years ago. I don't know if people saw me reference that when I was talking to Paul Maurice down in Florida. He brought that goal up. He didn't mention Craig Rivet. So when I brought it up to Kevin Adams, he goes, go find the video and see who it was against. And sure enough, it was Craig Rivet, which is kind of funny. If anybody, I may have to send that video out. I found it, but it was, I got a kick out of that. That of all people that Kevin Adams beat, it was Game 6, Hurricanes, Canadians, 2002, I believe. And Adams, who is not much of a dangler, put it between Rivet's legs and put the Hurricanes up 5-0. It was kind of funny that it came against Rivet, considering Rivet has been, now gets from his perch to take plenty of shots at Kevin Adams. And who knows, maybe that one's in the back of his head.
McKay, by the way, in an earlier comment, thinks you look good tonight. I wanted to pass that along if you didn't see it. And also says, good show, guys. Thanks as always. No, thank you for being one of many that came into the chat tonight. Other than that, real quick, I just want to, I want clarification from Cummings. He's banging his head. off the desk. And usually I haven't been paying close attention to the chat. I don't know if this is in response to a chat, or it's often in response to something I've said. So if it's something that I've said, definitely let me know, Cummings, in the chat. But other than that, if I don't see that come in, I think this is a good ending point. You agree?
I think that's just Brian's general state of being. His head on the desk, just with this Sabres team, because here he is in March, and we're still trying to figure out how to fix these guys. But we'll get to it all in the off season. We'll fix it.
We certainly will. So, Clinton, I apologize for not really being able to dig deep into your comment, but I think we're going to go really deep on that topic in future episodes here of the Baker Fairburn Hockey Show. With all that said, thank you to everyone who came in live. This thing, we're growing it. We do this for the community that we're building here. It's incredible to see the support that we get from you guys every week, and it keeps getting better every week. By the way, we're the top, 20? Of hockey podcasts this week?
We hit number 18 hockey podcast in America on Monday, which is a testament to what you're talking about. These people spreading the word, telling their friends, comment, especially that Apple chart is boosted by the ratings and the comments. And so awesome stuff. That was definitely a boost on Monday to see that when we did the deadline episode over the weekend. It was well received. So much love to everybody out there listening, downloading, subscribing, telling their friends, unsubscribing and resubscribing to continue to boost us up the charts. I think that's what the algorithm says to do. I don't know. You never know.
Someone didn't like the video. We had a couple thumbs down on the trade deadline video. That also helps the algorithm. So I'll take the engagement any way we get it. Now hit the like button, everyone, while you're here on YouTube. Don't hit the dislike button because you're going to hurt my feelings if you do that. But it does help the algorithm. All right. I'm just blithering on right now. I haven't eaten since my avocado toast this morning at 6:30 a.m. So I'm about to hit the kitchen, make a drink, get ready to watch Sabres Red Wings.
This is what Cummings was upset about. This is the Skinner buyout number. In the third year, it jumps to 6.45, then 2.4 plus. So
you're not doing that.
No.
I don't care how much the cap's going up. You're not doing that. Thanks for the clarification. As always, Brian Cummings. Okay, I think we're good. Matthew, enjoy the game. Write a kick-ass story. I hope you're going to write a story tonight. Otherwise, what are you just going to just sit around and loaf around the press box like I used to do? I used to go to those games, just sit around, just play grab ass with everyone and not do anything. But whatever, that's kind of what I did. At any rate, for Matthew Fairburn from The Athletic, for the production crew who didn't walk my dogs for me, and I'm going to go talk to them about that, I'm Kris Baker. Thank you again sincerely, everyone, for joining the Baker Fairburn Hockey Show. We'll see you again very soon.